thank you all for coming. Hopefully, everybody gets some pizza and stuff to drink and so forth. Peter, do you want to say a few words as our host, or our invited host, or you kind of helped us snag this location, and put the agenda together, and then.
Sure. Welcome. That's the big message. We're all here to help each other, I think, in the town of Berlin for sure. Economic development is important to so many of us, and we'll do anything we can in the town of Berlin to make it happen, and all of you as well. Welcome and thank you for coming.
So we've got a lot of seats up here. I'm not going to be the only one sitting up here. Maybe
I'll come up.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe Rich can.
Rich, Tim, where'd Tim go? Tim is sitting in the back. So we're
I'll take your seat.
Yeah, we're gonna
I'm not
let
speaking for you.
Rich and
Sean.
talk a little bit about the merger that's happened. We're all pretty excited about what's just happened with Cabela's and Bass Pro, sorry, is that right?
Yep, Bass Pro, yes,
Uh-huh.
correct.
It's a new venue.
Not the
for me.
boats.
Not the boat, sorry.
So I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today. Just give me a show of hands who's been here before. All right, so we got a lot of opportunity here. So you guys got to get out of the house once in a while. Come visit us. We're a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. Peter recognized that. He asked if we could have a development meeting here a few months back. We had it. It was a great turnout, and it was a great experience. And then we started brainstorming, hey, what other things can we do? He recommended that, hey, we're going to have a regional committee meeting. And I said, well, host it here. It'd be a great place to have it. You know, you guys are welcome anytime, no charge.
Don't tell Janet that.
We just have to book it in advance, so just give us a call. But you all have my business card. I'll introduce Sean. Sean Humphreys is our assistant general manager for the store. Sean's been with the store since opening, about 4 years. I've been here approximately 2 years. I moved here from Kentucky. I can tell you that it is very expensive to live in Massachusetts versus Kentucky. So that's my big takeaway. But just want to kind of talk about, we said, hey, we just kind of want to let you all know, what we're doing here, how successful we've been up to this point, and how much fun it's been being part of the Berlin group here, and how much support we get. So just kind of want to talk about that, and kind of let you know that, hey, we're here for all of you guys. If you have any ideas or suggestions, or you want to brainstorm, we're up for any of those types of things. And we do a lot of things with the community in a lot of different ways. We'll talk through some of those things. We just put some bullet points down, since we're really not the showpiece of this whole thing. We're just kind of kicking it off. So we're talking about the merger. So if you all didn't know this or not, we merged with Bass Pro. Cabela's merged with Bass Pro. We were actually bought out by Bass Pro last year, probably about more like a year and a half ago. The merger really started changing and adapting at the beginning of last year. So it's been about a year since a lot of things have happened, a lot of improvements have been made, which has increased a lot of things in our store on a positive note, including traffic, including our customers' perception of the store, including how much product we have in the store, and all those types of things. And it's still improving. When you make change, there's a lot of things that a lot of balls you drop, but they're picking them up, running with it, and we're improving from there. We've seen a shift in the dynamics of the business. Our apparel square footage, if you've shopped here before, we've expanded that by about 25%. Our gift area, if you haven't seen it coming in, Sunglass Hut has leased space in our building where they have a Sunglass Hut business within a business right there. So that's a big addition. That's only about a month old. So that's a big thing for us. We also have a boating department. If you all haven't seen the boats coming in the front door, we've increased that business over $1 million this past year. So 1 year, we've increased in one small little department $1 million. So that's pretty cool stuff. So the demand is here. Demand is in the economy here. The money's there, and the customers are really benefiting from what we can bring to the table in this store. Also, we've attracted a lot of new customers into the store that have never shopped here before. Like a lot of you folks haven't been here before. A lot of folks come in and say, oh, they got hunting and fishing, and I don't hunt or fish. But we have a lot of apparel, a lot of footwear, a lot of cool stuff that I see a lot of shoes that we sell here that you've bought. So kind of cool. Just talk about our corporate office. So we've been very supported by our corporate office and the merger, and how things have gone is very positive. A lot of changes, a lot of things happening. You don't know what's coming. You don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure a lot of you in the banking industry have encountered mergers before where a lot of question marks, and it's a lot of negativism goes on with all that. But I can tell you this merger has been nothing but positive, very comforting to know that we merged two awesome companies into one, which has made a powerhouse. So you'll see more and more come from that in the future. Our store, well, I'll let Sean talk about it.
So some of the things, that really we've seen a change in over the last year that has driven foot traffic in. We've really increased the number of events that we've done. So does anyone here, did you come in over Christmas time and see Santa's Wonderland that was set up here? So that was brand new to us under Cabela's roof. So we actually set up a 5,000 square foot Santa's Wonderland. We removed all the boats from the boat showroom and set everything up. It wasn't just about pictures, but we had 5 Santa Clauses that were on rotation here that were hired to come in. We had elves that were in the store, and we had things that set up like a shooting gallery, just like kind of an old-fashioned shooting gallery there. We had some video games set up there. We had a lot of kids-oriented events and games set up just to make Cabela's a destination store. So we were giving out free photos during that, and families could buy photo packages as well, but everyone that came in, they could get a free photo with Santa. And the first night, which was a Thursday night, Friday night, was the first night that we did the launch. So we hooked up our truck to a pontoon boat, and Santa went around. We strung lights on it. Santa went around the plaza on the back of the boat. And I wasn't here that night, but the pictures that Rich took and the videos, it was amazing the number of people and number of families that brought in that brought into the store. So changes like that is, what we've seen is Bass Pro has brought a lot more family orientation into the store. So we did pictures with the Easter Bunny, again, smaller scale, but we got to reach families who had newborns between Christmas and now, and telling them that we have, if you think this is great, we have Santa's Wonderland in the winter. So a really good way to bring folks into the store and tie the store and make the store really family oriented. This weekend, if anyone's interested, we have a pro cooking team, our barbecue team that's going to be at the store giving out free samples. We're doing demos on some of the products that we sell, whether it's fryers, smokers. So it's a way to get out and see something new and make the store a destination store, whether you want to buy something or not. So it's about bringing people into the store, which has been really a fantastic addition for us. So we've also seen since the merger, we've seen a lot more advertising through Bass Pro. So you're now seeing on TV the combined commercials with Cabela's and Bass Pro, and it's talking about the events that we have. So a lot more advertising going into our ads and things like that nowadays. So one of the key pieces that we've seen with the change is that Cabela's was a publicly traded company. Bass Pro is privately owned, so now we're a private company. So what we've seen is the push to really invest in the customers, if you will. So we're allowed to spend the payroll that we felt we needed to spend to take care of the customers all last year. And it really, when you have customers that are coming in and saying, hey, this is great, everyone was friendly, everyone was willing to help, everyone asked me if they can assist, that makes it much more desirable for a customer versus going into a store that you can't locate someone for assistance. So that freedom to be able to have the payroll that we need to be able to take care of the customers has been great as well.
Just a little note on that. It's kind of funny, actually. So I've never actually worked for a company that tells you to keep hiring after you've already overhired your plan.
Hey,
Yeah. So I get on the phone with my boss. All right, boss. I've hired 40 people. I met my goal. He said, keep hiring. Call back the next time. Keep hiring. So it's pretty cool when a company really supports that, supports the customers, invests the money, and doesn't look at the percent of sales like most other companies do, most other retailers especially, that are publicly traded. They say, no, we're spending the money because this is the reason the customers are going to come back. So that's what really makes us a great anchor store for this complex, because the folks that shop here know that when they come in here, they're going to get the service, they're going to get what they need, and they're going to have a good time at it. All right. So real quick, in addition, this wouldn't be possible without groups such as the Economic Development Committee from Berlin. So appreciate what you guys do every day. And then the police and fire department here, they're amazing. I worked in many different states, many different cities, probably 11 different states. And this is the coolest, best group of people that I've ever met. Supportive. I've never battled or fought with anybody here. If there was a disagreement or something we had to discuss, it was a discussion and we solved it. So that's pretty cool in itself. We cooperate with a lot of different folks other than just the local folks, such as the Massachusetts Department of Fisheries and Wildlife on a large scale. We're donating 400 rods very soon to that group, just for kids. So pretty cool stuff. The Worcester County League of Sportsmen, I don't know if anybody ever hear that? So they support most of the sportsmen's clubs in the area. I think there's over like 30 they support, which is a really cool organization. If you haven't looked into them, check them out. They're pretty cool. And then local gun clubs. We get involved, local sportsmen's clubs. We personally get involved with those groups and have a lot of fun. For example, Harvard Sportsman's Club had a fishing derby last weekend. I was there to help sponsor it. We had probably 100 kids there. They caught a ton of fish, had a ton of fun. We donated about $3,000 that day and gave everybody a prize. Well, they probably got 2 or 3 prizes actually. So it was a lot of fun. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things that we noticed with the acquisition or merger is that it wasn't, when Bass Pro came in, they really evaluated the best practices of both Bass Pro and Cabela's, and they implemented or kept what they deemed as the best practice. And if you've shopped here and you bought something here, you were asked if you wanted to round up to the nearest dollar for the conservation roundup. And that is something that did continue with Bass Pro. They changed it a little bit, but that was something that they recognized was a great opportunity to continue to preserve and conserve with that. So we here at our store is with that conservation roundup, we were 2 years in a row in the top 3 stores of our tier with that conservation roundup, and that is due to the customers and their generosity of rounding up. But in doing so, that money we've allowed to give back to local organizations with that. So some of the things that we've donated back to or given grant money to, one is through a local organization called Northeast Big Bucks, and each year they give 4 scholarships to students going into a graduate program that is focused on either conservation or wildlife. So to be able to give that money to the youth and continue to grow the conservation at that level has been great. We also gave a grant to the Friends of the Essex River that we're building a ADA accessible ramp to allow people to access that and fish from. So that was a wonderful grant that we were able to donate to. We work with an organization that this year gave earlier this year, they bought 72 fishing licenses for veterans. So veterans came in, and anyone that wanted to that day could get a free fishing license. So we, in conjunction with the organization, paid for those fishing licenses for the veterans. We also support numerous fishing derbies, whether it's private fishing derbies or town fishing derbies, and by, as Rich said, giving out, you know, rods, reels, gift cards, tackle boxes, things like that. So to really be able to support the youth and continue the passion that we have here at the store. And then last year, we gave 400, we donated 400 new fishing rods to Mass Fish and Wildlife, and that they use in free fishing weekends that allows families to go out and have access to fishing that's you know, an event that they might not have ever had the ability to do before. So we're really honored to be able to work with those groups and to be able to give back to the community. And I think one of the greatest things that we have here is that I'd say 95% of the staff that works here is passionate about the store, or at least some department in the store. So, you know, Rich and I both are participate in outdoor activities that, you know, we sell the product. And you know, the fun part about working...
He turkey hunts and I fly fish.
Yeah, so, you know, the greatest thing here is that, you know, we don't sell anything that you need, even though that's debatable to some people, but we sell product that people want. And you know, our staff, our outfitters that are out on the floor are so passionate about the product that they sell. And to be able to have that experience with customers, whether it's someone that's experienced in fishing or someone brand new, to be able to share our knowledge and expertise and passion with the customers is very, very rewarding. I think that's what makes us as lucky as we are.
Rich, you shared with us how much you raised with this roundup. You want to share it with everyone?
I believe it was over $40,000. So $40,000, and that's in addition to the funds that we already had. This is just extra money. So extra $40,000 we can give back to the community, and we spent every penny.
That was in 1 year.
That was in 1 year. And we do a lot of stuff with the scouts, we couldn't even list off all the people we donate to or give back to the community with. So if you guys ever have a need or a request, or you're involved in something, you want to reach out to us, reach out to Sean or myself, we'll be happy to talk to you about it and see what we can do. It usually has to deal with, if we do give funds, we like to focus on youth. We like to focus on folks that are not in the sport and try to bring people into different outdoor sports and what we do. So just keep that in mind. We don't really get involved in like baseball, football, or anything like that, but anything that we sell in the store, we try to stay focused on. But I'd like to open up to any questions since we're here, got a few extra minutes. Just any questions about anything we do here at Cabela's or Bass Pro?
Rich, I wonder what you think of is the kind of the radius that you guys draw from. I know Janet drives, you know, a long way to get here, or what I would think is a long way to get to a East Coast
We
shop.
sell a lot of products to folks in Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine. So a lot of people come around 495. You know, stop at our store as a destination on their way. So especially people with RVs, campers, things like that, because we do have an RV station over here on the side of the building, if you didn't know that. So they can park their camper overnight on their way up to wherever they're going. So kind of cool. So we do reach out, I'd say, you know, on average over 100 miles, since, you know, East Hartford is probably our closest Cabela's. You've got Foxborough, Bass Pro. We're the only Cabela's in Massachusetts. But then you got the Bass Pro in Hooksett, and you've got the Scarborough, Maine Cabela's. So those are the closest stores to us to get home. Yep. So we're all pretty much scattered about, but far enough away that we'll draw 100 miles away. So, any other questions?
If I could just ask, how many people do you have?
We-
come in
Oh.
last year?
Customers or? I can get you those numbers, but I'm not exactly sure at this moment.
How
Quite a few to spend, to
Quite a-
give those extra pennies back at
Quite a few
$40,000.
100,000 folks, yeah.
How about employees?
Yeah.
Employees, so right now we probably have about 150, and in peak season we'll have about 200. It was 202 last year, I think we ramped up.
That's great.
And there's legislation proposed to create an Office of Outdoor Recreation. Have you guys
I'm not sure about that, no, I've not heard that.
I think it's pending in
There's
the
a bill.
legislature,
Yeah.
which would,
We were excited about that.
Yes.
Maybe the undersecretary can talk about that.
Well, it's under energy and environmental.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question?
Just curious, of your employees, how many of those are full-time?
Full-time, you're talking about 35%, something like that? I think about right now it's about 35%.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. A lot of our part-timers work a lot more hours than they probably should, so. A lot of time. Any other questions?
Were there any locations lost in the merger?
Not that I know of. I really don't know for sure. I haven't heard any of that. And they're talking about expanding at this moment, you know. The focus was on the change with the merger and getting that resolved, and now they're talking about expanding. To what extent, I don't know.
Are there any changes coming to the store either due to the merger or just in the future that you can talk about?
Product more than anything, I'd say. Most of the moves have been made as far as departments go. Product expansion, we're only 94% in stock just because a lot of new products are coming in. So we hope to be 100% in stock soon. So that should change a lot of things. And a lot of decisions are being made on what we're going to carry, what we're not going to carry, all those types of things too. So.
Anything about might be losing? Any categories you're losing?
That changed quite a bit, just because, again, you know, what we're seeing is if you go into a Bass Pro, you'll see Cabela's items in there. You come in here, and you see Bass Pro branded items. We have T-shirts, you know, and relating back to the, you know, similar to the best practices, there was a merger of branded products. So, you know, there was, probably using as an example camo clothing, we saw fewer lines out there, but so we could focus on, you know, the key ones that we felt were important, you know, from a price point, from economical, you know, to, you know, as a casual hunter to high end. So they consolidated a lot of that, but we're still seeing changes even right now. Whereas Herder's branded ammo, which was ours, just through negotiation, so we didn't see it for a while, but it's now coming back in. So we're still seeing changes going on even now.
Our brand of Tracker is the #1. We're the largest boat dealer in the U.S., if not the world. I'm not even sure if it's the world, but in the U.S. we're the largest boat dealer, which is pretty cool. So we can get product whenever we need it. A new addition to what we have is our ATVs, UTVs, all that kind of stuff, which are really new. And then we just bought we own the rights to the Tracker off-road name, which previously has been called Articat. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. So a lot of our products are very high quality because a lot of the products we carry were formerly Articat or Textron products, which most of them are made in the U.S., which is pretty cool. The boats are manufactured by us, so we own the manufacturing for our Tracker boats that we sell, which is pretty cool. We're not relying on somebody else to supply us. We can get a lot more product than we could previously before the merger. Okay. Other questions?
Questions for these guys? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have another round of applause for Rick.
Thanks for giving back to the community in so many different ways in the region.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for listening.
Appreciate it.
Let's,
We'll be back. I'll be back.
I'm going to swap seats with Tim, have him come up here, and let him
Close at 9 tonight?
introduce Tim.
Yeah, but we can stay till 11.
All right. His dream is to be left alone in Cabela's office.
I've only been here since 6 a.m., so it's okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
Should we get started?
Thank you for having me. My name is Tim McGurthy. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Housing and Economic Development for the Commonwealth. I will put out the caveat that I have been Deputy Secretary for a period of time that I am not yet on state health care, meaning it's been a short period. I started at the beginning of March. Prior to that, I was the Executive Director of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, for anybody who's familiar with that organization. And prior to that, I was Chief Development Officer for the City of Worcester. And also prior to that, I was Director of Policy at the Boston Redevelopment Authority. So my background is municipal public policy, municipal challenges, more from an urban perspective. And I know a lot of the folks here are from smaller towns. My background is more gateway cities and urban perspective. I'm an urban planner by profession, by background. And so the challenge for me moving up to the state has been kind of refocused from looking at place and specific site to thinking more broadly about statewide challenges, statewide issues. You know, I can tell you that it is a challenge, and you know, I'm here on behalf of the Baker Polito administration. I think you know a key piece is they recognize that the Commonwealth is more than Boston, and it is also more than cities. You know, we are lucky in particular that the Lieutenant Governor is from Shrewsbury. Kristen is here from Shrewsbury. So there is even a local perspective about what role we play as a region and what role other places play, both as regions, as cities and municipalities, towns and cities, and as types of industries, types of places. So it has been kind of an exciting transition. I'll give you a little bit about the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. We are about 900 staff people at the state, divided among quite a few different roles. The Secretariat encompasses a number of quasi-public agencies that carry out various programs on its behalf. There's about 50 programs that are funded through the Secretariat. We have I'd say hundreds of millions of dollars that go out every year from the state to various programs that focus on housing or economic development statewide. And so it's one of the things that surprised me in going up to the state is I never thought of it this way, except we are essentially a grant-making organization. The prime role of the state as it comes to economic development is really about money. The prime role of localities and municipalities is about working with individual businesses, working on individual sites with property owners. So it's kind of a very different role when it comes to the broad scope of economic development. And a key piece of that is kind of local control and local involvement, recognizing the diversity of issues and opportunities that are there statewide. The Commonwealth isn't looking to take over and manage economic development at the local level. It's looking to partner with localities as they look to kind of manage and overcome economic challenges or capitalize on economic opportunities. So within the Secretariat, we have a number of different functions. Kind of the close-in functions that we have, ones that we are probably known for are some of the grant programs, which I'll come back to. Operationally, though, the Department of Housing and Community Development, which works with quite a few communities on housing production, primarily affordable housing production when it comes to state funding, but broadly housing production when it comes to some of the regulations and zoning requirements that go into localities and housing. And there's also the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation, which, thinking of the business environment within which we all operate, within which private businesses operate, the opportunities of public licensure, banks, insurance, all fall in, the regulatory structure all falls into housing and economic development. But then as tools under the quasi-public agencies, we have organizations like Mass Development, which is the state's prime economic development and industrial development arm. As a quasi, it operates statewide. There is an office in Worcester, a Central Mass office in Worcester on Shrewsbury Street. It has offices throughout the Commonwealth. It handles challenges, looking at bonding and support for major investment projects, often colleges and universities working with those, but large businesses that are seeking bond or financial support. And it works with municipalities on some of the more site-specific challenges. Brownfield funds come through Mass Development. There's Transformative Development Initiative, which looks at gateway cities and some of the challenges within gateway cities of combining local need and kind of economic pressures. And it works on site preparation. identifying the opportunities within specific sites, finding opportunities within kind of challenging locations statewide. On the flip side of mass development is mass housing, which serves in some ways a similar role where it provides funding, financial support for housing projects. Primarily affordable housing projects, again, carrying out a public purpose of creating housing, but creating housing opportunities for people of all incomes. But then it also engages in support for mortgages, housing mortgages that people might go to their banks to take out and to support. So it's involved in individual mortgage transactions through private banks. So it plays a large, sometimes invisible role in supporting the ability for people to finance their homes and secure dollars through mortgages. We also have a number of kind of more targeted quasi-development agencies like Mass Growth Capital Corporation, which looks to provide funding for businesses. Mass Ventures, which provides equity involvement in growing businesses. The Mass Office of Business Development, and Rosemary Scribbins is here, who used to be part of Mass Office of Business Development, but Mass Office of Business Development looks to partner with businesses to connect them to other opportunities, whether it's the tax programs that we have at the state level or business relationships that might help further their efforts. Kevin Kouros is newly appointed as the Regional Director for Central Massachusetts, so we'll have to make sure he connects in with the work that you all are doing. But MOBD oversees what is one of our more well-known programs, the Tax Increment Financing Program, the Economic Development Incentive Program, where we look to support the redevelopment of properties with tax relief at the local level, working with the municipality, but then at the state level as well through capital income tax. So we have a broad gamut. We mentioned Mass Film Office falls under Housing and Economic Development. The Mass Marketing Partnership falls under Housing and Economic Development. Mass Office of International Trade and Investment falls under Housing and Economic Development. So it has a very broad mission, as you all know. It's a complicated series of, almost a dance with property owners, with businesses, to try to make things come to fruition. And government's role can be delicate. What's the right level of involvement from a government agency versus kind of private banks, financiers, real estate, all those folks that might be involved. So, the kind of key message I would say is we are here as a resource. We are here to assist and help promote goals and objectives that you might have. There are lots of programs, lots of dollars, all come with their own sort of criteria and requirements. So it's not like we're kind of there to throw money at any issue that arises. But there are some flexible programs. There are some opportunities that I have no doubt any municipality here could take advantage of. I'll mention the big one, which is really our most flexible program, but MassWorks, which you may hear about. It's an $80 million program annually, where we fund public infrastructure investment. It is through the municipality. It is not to private entities, but to municipalities. There is a 10% portion of it that is dedicated to towns that are smaller than 7,000 residents, which may hit a few of your individual communities. And that program is really geared at helping maintain, rebuild the infrastructure, knowing that for many communities, the necessary investment to kind of shore up some of this old infrastructure that's been supporting our communities for decades sometimes requires an off-budget approach. So the MassWorks program is there. The STRAP program is the one geared directly to small municipalities. It can be up to STRAP, the 7,000 below, can be up to $1 million of support for a targeted infrastructure project that the municipality might be struggling with. I will tell you, because they are so flexible and because they have such kind of opportunity in terms of funding, they are extremely competitive. So STRAP funding, we get, it's a small percentage that end up getting, even though there is $8 million a year dedicated towards STRAP, it's a small group that gets funded every year as a result. $80 million total under MassWorks. It really, it's usually about 40 projects. And when you think 351 communities, there's a lot of applications, a lot of competition for those projects that are there. So with that, I understand the last time you guys had a speaker, it was a more informal approach, so I'd be happy to kind of talk about programs, projects, opportunities, whatever I can offer.
If I can just add, Tim, I believe the MassWorks application information is out right now. It came out yesterday.
It did,
So
yes.
great timing.
Good timing, exactly.
Thank you for
MassWorks-
sharing the money with us.
Yeah, MassWorks is on rounds, and that's the thing, each program, one of the things, I will tell you, one of the things that I, coming from a municipal background, and hoping to do at the Secretariat is, and the Secretary Keneally, Mike Keneally, who is the Secretary, is completely on board with this, is look at ways of streamlining the application process. Each one of our grant programs has its own individual application process, its own timeline for applications, finding ways to actually bring some of those timelines together, create a kind of a more streamlined application approach. Similar to those who have worked in housing, there's a one-stop concept for housing where you can apply through one application to multiple programs, multiple agencies, multiple grants. You can think of it again as if any of you have recently gone through or have children who have gone through the college application process, the Common App, one application that many colleges accept. We're looking to see if we can do something like that because you have to hit these programs based on the timeline, based on the opening. But MassWorks is open right now. It's open for, I think, a period of 2 months, but getting fast and furious. And all of these are online. If you look at the mass.gov website, all of our programs are listed and outlined. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to call. I am really impressed with the staff that I've met with and interacted with at the Secretariat. Everyone wants to be helpful. They want to be involved. We are on the road a lot. And I should mention, similar to that, we are just beginning an economic development plan, which is important for folks to participate in. Every 4 years under state law, or at least in a new administration, a new gubernatorial administration, we need to do an economic development plan. Because of the recent election, Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito are starting a new administration. So for this year, we are beginning an economic development plan, which will be submitted by the Secretary to the legislature, and then for approval and kind of embraced by the administration going forward. That will hopefully lead to an economic development bond bill, which is the money behind the plan. So the ideas that go through this planning process can potentially be turned into new programs, new funding opportunities going forward. Recognizing the plan will be finished at the end of 2019, an economic development bond bill would come through maybe by the end of 2020. So kind of there's a time period here. But I will mention, pardon me, because I have to look it up, Worcester.
Do you have a treasure?
I printed it off the website, Tim, and it's going around the listening sessions that are there. The one in
We promoted it on Twitter and Facebook.
Excellent, thank you. So these listening sessions are an opportunity to kind of pull from people what worked over the last 4 years, what didn't work, what do they need, and kind of ideas about how the Commonwealth should approach economic development going forward. There'll be breakout sessions on different elements. I'll be leading the communities breakout session, but please come, please participate. It is at Clark? The Worcester one is at Clark University. So we'd love to have you at the table, kind of engaged and participating, giving us some ideas.
Please participate. Small, large, everyone in between, town-wise. All of you need, and this is your opportunity to have your voice heard.
But you can't come to any. Tomorrow is Salem. Thursday is Springfield. So there's quite a few out there. 8, I think, in all. If you can't make it to the Worcester one, you're welcome to come to any of them. They are not regional specific. They are statewide discussion and concept.
And how long are the meetings?
I think it's 2 hours time. There's 2 40-minute breakout sessions to talk about kind of specific topics. You have choice of a few different topic areas that you can go to. Innovation, communities, housing. But then there'll be some kind of full meeting pieces around those 2 sessions. So yeah, please. And the sessions will be led by Secretary Keneally and Lieutenant Governor Polito.
So Secretary Keneally spoke to the Berlin Economic Development Committee when he had your role a year ago, and that was very informative. But I'd like to hear more about examples of Mass Earthworks grants. MassWorks grants, and the folks that make the decision. It must be a committee?
So, yeah, so the way MassWorks functions is, like I said, it is a public infrastructure program. So it is by application from municipalities. It is extremely flexible. And having worked from the municipal side, I can tell you when I worked for the city of Worcester, the challenge was we had multiple grant programs that, again, similar to now, you have to kind of target what you're trying to do and figure out which grant program is correct. MassWorks is very broad. It can repave streets, it can build baseball stadiums, it can, only in one case. It was awarded before my time at the state, I will say that, my disclaimer. It can be used to support municipal properties, parklands, anything that can be tied to an economic development impact. So it can't simply fix up City Hall or Town Hall. It could be used to repave the portion of street, build out a streetscape program that connects Town Hall with the public schools, with new business park that's happening around the corner. It has to have that connection. It could be used to build I'm throwing this out, a municipal skating rink that kind of brings people into the downtown, that creates economic activity around it. The programs we often see are, road work is a big one, finding ways to connect roads and overpasses. Connections to highway systems sometimes happen. It can be used for support for maritime infrastructure in seaport communities.
I think we've had a number in our region, like Shrewsbury's had some, I know Berlin had some that supported river bridges, if I remember right.
Yep, bridges, culverts can be used.
River bridge and housing development was supported, and they're kind of different targets, right?
Yeah, parking garages, I mean, that is eligible activity.
What was Syntax, Kristen?
So the Shrewsbury MassWorks grant is for transportation improvements at Route 20 and Lake Street to help implement a market basket and other retail facilities and 250 housing units. So, and then we've also taken advantage of some of the mass development grants for Syntec.
I've gone to, or not only myself, but quite a few of the staff have gone to Open for Business, the Blackstone Valley Chamber. Jeannie Bieber puts them in the communities, and Mass Office of Business Development, and a lot of the quasis through your agency attend, and it's amazing what they have to offer to the businesses and also to homeowners in those communities. And I would encourage any of the economic development commissions to do something similar. And it's opening your doors to the businesses to let them know that you're business friendly, to get the interaction going on and to work together, public and private.
Yeah.
As well, and even with the MassWorks, I know quite frequently you look for that public and private investment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, this, as I mentioned, this is not just to kind of fix your infrastructure that you use as a municipality. It's to fix infrastructure that has an economic opportunity attached to it. So, the idea of combining the road work in Shrewsbury with the development of Market Basket and some of the investments going on around it is a critical piece.
I wanted to ask you, Tim, about the Opportunity Zone program, the federal program that was part of the tax bill of 2017. And the previous Secretary Ash, had really taken the lead. He had a statewide summit on it in Lowell last fall. And Southbridge has 2 opportunity zones, and it's really, the rollout from the federal side has been very slow. But I'm just wondering if Secretary Keneally, is that how you- Keneally, it plans to kind of pick that up and carry it from where, Secretary Ash had it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how many communities have opportunity zones within them. The federal government, it's a federal program. It allows for investors to avoid capital gains taxes by basically parking their money within an opportunity zone. It could be in a business or a real estate deal. They basically asked the states to identify zones that met certain criteria. And then there was only a certain amount of opportunity zone allowed for each state. I think Massachusetts has about 139 or so opportunity zones within them. If you don't have one now, I apologize, but you have missed the application period. There was a call about a year or two ago where every community had to submit their recommended opportunity zones. Those zones were vetted and awarded. Like I said, the program is federal. I mean, this is about private individuals, private businesses having an opportunity to go into an area that met certain criteria of income and education, and it basically encouraged private investment in distressed areas. The interesting part of that is that because it is private investment in a distressed area, there is no reporting mechanism. So communities that have opportunity zones will not know necessarily if someone is investing in the opportunity zone and taking advantage of the opportunity zone program, because you don't report out on the investments occurring. There is discussion at the federal level of now including that, but unless someone comes to you to say, I'm looking to invest in this opportunity zone, is there something the locality can do? You will not know. Someone will go in, they will take advantage of the program, they will gain that benefit, and you'll be done. So we are looking at the possibility, and localities are looking at the possibility of trying to pair state and local programs with the opportunity zone locations and designations to try to further encourage the investment. We don't have specific targeted programs right now. We don't have kind of layers that we can put on. At the local level, creating tax increment financing zones or areas where you've pre-approved certain sites could serve to unlock those areas. But there's no designated menu, say, of opportunities to connect to an opportunity zone.
I was just going to say, all I've been able to do is just, when I talk to people who are looking for properties, or I talk to someone who owns a property that's in opportunity zone, I send them the information. And then when they say, can you explain this to me? That's where it ends. It's very complex. They just, the IRS just released the latest possible regs, but they still have to be vetted and maybe approved in July. It's just frustrating, but I'm starting to hear about it more.
Yeah.
I just had a bank call me, and again, I said, here's what I have on it, talk to an accountant. So you can at least try to market properties, like I keep a commercial industrial inventory on my website. I'm constantly sending it out to people, and so I let people know, this is an opportunity zone, and I try to push it, and it's just not a lot of other guidance.
Yeah. I will, speaking as the former executive director of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau, if you go to www.wrrb.org, the Research Bureau's website, we did a report on opportunity zones in Worcester, so specifically to Worcester, but we outlined each opportunity zone and kind of the characteristics of it as a way of, we both outlined the program, but then these individual zones as a way of kind of putting it out there. Because as you said, some investors, right now there are investors nationwide looking for opportunity zone opportunities. The challenge is the opportunity zone designation does not make a risky investment less risky. Because if it goes down, you lose your money. You've invested, you lost, there it is. But what it does do is it makes a good investment a good place to put your money, a better place to put your money, because you can avoid the capital gains on your other transactions. And that's pretty much my ability to speak about it, so hire a lawyer.
Are the gains deferred, like a 1031?
Yes, and then eliminated over time based on certain schedules. So that's where you have to read
So
through.
more advantageous than a 1031?
More advantageous than a 1031. They are eliminated over time, or at least a large portion are
I
eliminated.
think 10 years, if you hold it for 10 years.
I think that there's an additional 2 years or something. Like, yeah, I know there's 2 periods of time can you gain greater benefit by making it through the two? So it is a good place to look for investment. Again, it can be in real estate or a business located within that zone. But as an opportunity, I keep using that word and I apologize, but as opportunity is the only word, as a chance to put your community ahead when people are looking to invest, it's good to put the kind of word out somewhere clearly that you have opportunity zones and what they consist of. You may never know if someone uses that because they will not come to you for anything necessarily. Unless, like I said, you could pair TIF, pre-approval TIF type approaches in that area. There might be kind of commitments the municipality makes directly within that area that will get developers or investors to come to you to say, I'm thinking of doing this, will you partner with me on something? That is a way to take advantage of the program.
Interestingly, I received an email today from Deb Bevan at EDA, and on a particular project looking for funding, and one of the questions was, is this an opportunity zone?
Yes.
So the federal, through EDA, they're looking for that.
So that was about a
Something that
infrastructure grant?
came, yeah.
EDA, yeah,
Yes.
I heard that they're getting involved a little bit, but I wasn't sure.
So we have, I believe, 4 communities that I can think of off the top of my head. Spencer, Southbridge, Worcester, and Webster that have the opportunity zones. So if I can also throw out, at a quarterly meeting a few quarters ago, we're really stressing the importance of the census and responding to the census, because the opportunity zones may change, or you may have an opportunity zone in your community that you previously didn't based on the census tract. So when the census does come out, it's so important for everybody to complete it and send it back.
Well, let
They do look at it.
me add from a state perspective as well. Much of our funding is federal funding that passes through when it comes to places like the Department of Housing and Community Development. That count, if it goes down, our numbers go down, our ability to spend on some of these programs goes down. So it is critical that those census numbers are accurate and reflect the full population, because otherwise we will see a loss of funding and a loss of some of the programs that we can do as a state.
$2,000 to $3,000 per person, federal funding that comes in.
This may be outside your area of expertise, but what are we doing to ensure that all the citizens throughout the state are counted?
That is outside my area of expertise. The census is managed through the Secretary of State's office. I know various communities, I know Worcester has formed its own census committee that is looking at trying to ensure, engage the community, trying to ensure census participation. But I couldn't speak to any specific endeavors being done right now. CMRPC has been part of that too as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think what you'll find is a lot of the senior centers will probably be involved as well. As you may recall, the census is supposed to be all electronic, which could be quite a challenge. But also with some populations, to have peers reach out to those particular populations to make them feel safe and ensure that they're counted. So they're looking for a lot of volunteers in all of the communities and throughout the region to help get those counts, and it's just so important, you just can't push that enough.
So do you have intake folks to assist with the grant application, MassWorks grant application?
So, not per se. We have project managers that are happy to answer questions, and if you look at the website, I'm pretty sure we have scheduled like a conference call to talk about the application process and technical assistance along the way. We do, any community that applies, it's reviewed, you mentioned, it's reviewed by a committee composed of different secretariats within the state. So it includes Housing and Economic Development, includes Energy and Environmental Affairs, Department of Transportation. But any community that is not awarded, we do, which I was impressed by, not wanting to answer those calls, but we do make staff available that they will, any community can ask for a download of why they were not selected. And there will be a staff person who can walk you through what in your application kind of didn't compete as well against others. And again, sometimes it's just, there's some really great applications, it's really hard to get these dollars sometimes. but it could be there are certain things you want to position the community better. I will mention that similar to the idea of using opportunity zone as an indicator on EDA applications, we do look for certain things. This is in all of our state programs. The goal is to have you work with communities that are working to kind of improve and build the Commonwealth. So we look for communities that are housing choice communities, communities that are building housing and promoting the construction of new housing. We look for communities that are doing state programs like 40R to encourage density, or complete streets to build out safer street patterns. So if there are state programs, we look for communities that are engaged in planning efforts, that have expedited permitting agreements. If there are state initiatives or kind of state programs that you have or may be interested in, please sign up, please engage in them, because that will help applications as they're reviewed internally. We do a metric on numbers, and certain things get you a couple points on the scale as your application is being reviewed.
And we review them as well.
That's right,
As far as-
CMRPC is on the committee to review.
As far as that, how it fits into our different plans, especially the prioritization plans. If it's a priority development area, or if it's
Yeah.
been identified in other plans as well. So we do submit comments on all of them as well.
We review them, but we also participate in developing some of them. So if
Some
you've
of
got a
them.
project that you want some assistance on, how to cleverly word something that talks about priority development, we can help you. If you
Or
need,
demographics.
maps that show, your project in relationship to other economic, we can help you with that kind of stuff. We've got a pretty robust mapping, we've got other data tools that, Carrie and Emily are able to tap on. The syntax, we were doing renderings and showed kind of some possible kind of scenarios. So,
And then we have to disclose that we've assisted you.
yeah, we'll recuse ourselves from the
Yeah.
comments on your proposal, but we can give you some help on different parts of it. Just give us a little bit of leeway in terms of what it's doing. Give us a call, Carrie.
Or transportation related, if you need traffic counts,
Yeah.
certain areas, we can assist you with that.
What's the typical grant amount or the range?
For MassWorks, I think our average grant amount is about $2 million, but it could be a few $100,000 up to $32.5 million, which is what Polar Park is getting. So it varies.
It's a great program. And I like how they consolidated it. All into one. A lot of our more rural communities have benefited through the old STRAP grant. As part of the MassWorks. So a lot of that.
Which is still under MassWorks. So
Yeah.
STRAP is,
Yeah.
that's the for smaller communities, 7,000 and below, that 8%, dollars, $8 million committed to small communities for basic infrastructure work. It does not require, if you're looking for that STRAP funding, it does not require the economic development component. It just requires public infrastructure that needs significant support.
So sidewalks, roads, a lot of roads.
Yeah.
Is there a 10% match on that, on the STRAP? No?
I think STRAP will allow you to do design.
It will, actually, STRAP will allow design. That's part of the process.
Some of the other mass work require you kind of DRA.
You have to bring in the design, yeah, exactly.
Does Berlin need any more roundabouts? Have you driven around here? They've got it dizzy after a while. I think this is the roundabout capital, or at least in central Mass. You agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
They work.
I know, I don't like them for that reason.
We're gonna put some speed bumps in soon.
Oh, that's even worse.
I'm just kidding.
But absolutely.
Do smaller grant applications get greater preference?
Not really, no. I think each application is viewed on its merits. So the smaller grant applications may be easier to fit at the end as they're looking at how much is left of the authorization versus how much they funded. But I mean, it's usually the merits of the application.
And quite often, if there is a submission that is not approved one year, the community will resubmitted in future years.
Yeah, there's no prohibition against doing that. As I said, we're happy to kind of walk you through why it didn't get funded, or at least some of the challenges from the year before. And that does happen, that we, 1, 2, 3 years, we'll fund something in the third year. And again, it could just be because of the competition of that year. It could have nothing to do with the inherent value of the proposal itself.
How long does the review process take?
I think we make announcements in September, so it's about a month turnaround, I think, after we receive all the applications. We give them a month to 6 weeks.
Sorry, I missed what you said about the match for the strap.
I don't believe there's a match requirement for strap, but you'd have to confirm that one, but I don't believe there's any match requirement.
Sorry, I asked. Yeah, so I didn't,
On the strap, you said that you can do non-engineered programs. How do you put a program request in for something that's not really developed? Is that a different application or something?
they're supposed to be shovel ready.
Not for strap. Straps, you can do design work as part of the program. So, and it could be the design work alone that you're looking to funding for. Yeah. But it's the conceptual design. So we have one community out in Western Mass that they have a road in a really bad condition that is the ambulance route from one community to the hospital. They don't have any design for it. They need help with the design and the kind of reconstruction. We're funding both. So that's what it takes.
But the larger project is supposed to be shovel ready. I think you have 2 years to complete them, or do you
Yeah, we program out the funding, so it's like 3 years based on the size and scale. I mean, we kind of work within the time frame of, if it's a large project beyond the strap, how long it takes to complete the project. So if it's a 3-year construction cycle, design construction cycle, we can work within that to some extent. We do often allow extensions, but it's becoming tighter to do that because there's so much demand for the program. The dollars are limited. The more you drag dollars out, the less you can actually award in future years. So,
I knew they were tight.
Given your background, and now that you're in charge of the whole state, what are some of the major projects you'd like to see done, just from a state perspective, statewide?
So I'm not in charge of the whole state. I'll start with that. The governor is in charge of the whole state, the lieutenant governor, and then the secretary Keneally. So I can easily disavow that responsibility. And I will tell you, like I said, I come from municipal economic development, planning and economic development. So, it's kind of an interesting change of perspective for me to be at the state. And I will admit, I come from an urban background, not a rural background. So I think kind of understanding the challenges that outside of greater Boston and the gateway cities is a big issue. And even, I'll use an example, it varies as much as Gardner. Gardner has similar issues to Worcester. Gardner is not a gateway city, which means there's a different set of opportunities for Gardner as it comes to state programs. My vision, and it's biased, I mean, I am an urban planner. I think we should have transit-oriented development. I think we should take advantage of the existing infrastructure. I served prior to this role on the governor's Future of Transportation Commission that looked at where are we going to be in 2040. And I think technology is changing quickly. Millions of miles have been driven by autonomous vehicles already. They've just had to have someone sitting in the seat in case of an emergency. That person has not worked. And in that millions of miles, one person has died, which is a tragic issue. But in a million miles of a normal drive, lots of people have died due to human error and human drivers. So I think autonomous vehicles are coming. I think we need to be prepared for what that looks like, how that impacts the infrastructure. I think we need to be looking at housing density and where we can address housing density appropriately. Housing prices are going up. Companies are saying to us they either will not come to Boston or they cannot find the workforce because the workforce doesn't live close enough. As someone who drives 45 miles a day from Worcester to Boston now in 2 hours, I definitely recognize the impact of that kind of infrastructure issue on workforce. That for me was a big challenge of taking a job in Boston, was whether I wanted to make that drive every day. I think that we also need to look at kind of sustainability and resilience as we grow as a community and figuring out how do we build the infrastructure. Many of the programs that we'll fund, many of the MassWorks programs, will be trying to bring existing infrastructure into a state of good repair. And I'm sure you've all heard the issues that our bridges and tunnels are, the incredible percentage of them that are, poor or failing, and the dollars that we need to invest to get us there. And that's significant. And then last, I'll just say, for me, public education, understanding the kind of critical importance of public education as creating a future workforce and a future electorate, but then also as a planner, the critical effect of public education on sprawl and development density. People are leaving Boston or people are leaving Worcester because the public schools, as they hit family age, when I was living in Boston, many of my friends, when they started families, moved out of the city, Framingham, Natick, beyond, because they were looking for what they considered a good school system and an affordable price of house. That's a key factor in our kind of growth issues, and I think we need to try to think broadly about that as well. And that, I will say, none of these issues are new. All of these issues are things that people on Beacon Hill and in the administration, the governor, the lieutenant governor are all focused on. It's this question of how do we afford the changes that are necessary, or what are the time frames we do that in order to make it feasible that we can kind of cover all of the need that's out there.
But all essential to economic development.
Absolutely, absolutely.
A lot of times people don't look beyond that.
Yeah.
The importance of it in the housing choice initiatives.
Yeah. With the unemployment level it's at right now, companies are struggling to find workforce. So it's a skilled workforce. So we need to retrain the individuals who are here. We need to give affordable housing options to the people who are here and find ways to connect them to jobs, or we will see things like, not that this is a good example because Amazon was big and unruly and spectacular in a way, but we'll see companies like Amazon not look at Massachusetts because of the costs that's involved. I was at a talk by one of the leadership in GE Healthcare, and that was a big debate for GE, is whether or not Massachusetts made sense, because the cost of housing meant the cost of salary to the company, which meant kind of a cost of doing business overall, and that was a hurdle for Massachusetts to get to, and it's one we can't overcome with state incentives. We can't change salary structures with state incentives, so it's a question of how do we build the kind of broad basic infrastructure to ensure that these communities have what they need, and that the workforce has what it needs to draw the economic opportunity that comes with it.
Thank you. All right, you open the door to housing side of your business instead of the economic development. And is there a way that there's any funding available for affordable housing? I mean, from your organization?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The
Like
Department of Housing.
for a town to build affordable housing itself rather than a developer?
Well, that's public housing. And there's not a lot of funding right now for new public housing. The funding that's in place is mainly sustaining public housing. There are new funds that have been put in place, again, on the resilience piece to try to create more environmentally sustainable housing over time. I will tell you, you don't see it out here as much just because of market demand, but around Boston, we're seeing lots of new public-private partnerships on public housing projects, where you combine both private housing and public housing in a private development. But the Department of Housing and Community Development gives out billions of dollars a year for affordable housing. And so, yes, absolutely, we always welcome kind of people looking to build affordable housing. If you are not a housing choice community, look into becoming one. It may be difficult for some communities. One of the requirements is housing growth, and if you're not seeing housing growth,
West Boylston could be, Mark.
Yeah.
Could be.
You guys have hit
Yes.
the 5% threshold, or 3% threshold, that it wouldn't take
Close.
much?
No, the
the 3
land-
and the 5.
No, not the SHI,
Oh.
but so the housing choice just required a certain amount of production, not
The new
affordable,
production,
just
right.
overall housing
Yeah.
production.
So that could be a challenge, but even if you're not a housing choice community, there are significant funds out there to build affordable housing. I will put in a plug that we are working right now on housing choice legislation. There was a hearing today at the State House on it, where the governor and the lieutenant governor and the secretary all spoke, which would essentially change the zoning requirements from a 2/3 requirement for housing, or for zoning changes, down to a majority requirement. We are one of the few areas in the country where it requires a 2/3 vote. The statistics mentioned at the meeting were staggering, where 7 to 4 lost. Even though 7 was the higher number to change zoning. The thresholds of getting a supermajority in most communities is extremely challenging. And so there's legislation in front of the general court right now to try to change that to be a majority vote, similar to other kind of changes that would go before.
Just for zoning
But-
affordable housing.
Correct.
Zoning
Not
for
all
housing. Zoning for housing.
But other zoning, it remains a
Correct.
supermajority.
Is that true? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the focus of the legislation is housing.
And smart growth especially.
Yeah.
The majority with a smart growth principle on the housing.
Right. And there is a benefit of affordability if you include it, but it's not required in all places.
And the timeline, if that were to pass?
Our hope is sooner rather than later. We don't know. The legislature, like I said, the hearing was today. We hope that the Joint Committee on Housing and Economic Development will report it out favorably. It'll then go to Ways and Means and then to the full legislature. By the fall would be our hope, summer, fall, but it's in the hands of the general court right now. But please, if you talk to your legislators, throw in a voice of support. It is challenging. There are a lot of communities who don't want to change. They view it as an encroachment on home rule, but it still remains. A majority gets to decide what will happen in that community. It doesn't change that, but there are some who are concerned that changing it to a majority vote only is taking away authority. But in many cases, or at least there's anecdotally all the cases we heard today, where the majority did not get what it wanted because of a small minority that could stop any change in the zoning.
And one thing I want to throw out there, yes, a lot of communities in our region do have that fear. But many communities in our region, they have a decreasing school-age population, pretty much all west of here. And there's a dire need for affordable housing for the elderly. And the aging population is growing. So you may think, oh, we don't want to put in affordable houses, the kids are coming in. Well, the kids can't come in because there aren't any available houses. You have aging in place, you have those single-family homes that, a family could possibly come in at an affordable price, but elderly don't have any place to go.
And the way this legislation was crafted, it does not dictate what this housing looks like. It could be anything. It could be family housing, it could be single housing, it could be elderly housing. It's just trying to encourage more housing opportunities so that people can move through the spectrum. As people's lives change, as they kind of go through the stages, that there's housing opportunity at each level.
As the proposed legislation is drafted, can the community opt out of the supermajority change?
No. If the legislation is, I believe, if the legislation is
If
passed.
you choose to, you can,
The
there's
community has to opt
flexibility
into
as
the
to
2/3.
yes. What-
The
But right
community, I
now,
believe,
it's
has to opt into the majority.
Right.
Has to opt into
That's
the majority.
Under
That
housing choice. You're saying they prove a majority vote only? They have
The
to,
town meeting
It's
has
not
to
forced
act
on, if
to
the,
implement
if
that
it's
majority.
passed,
Okay. Okay.
everyone, it doesn't fall within every community.
So
You
that
opt
is,
in to go with the majority versus.
okay.
so the minority can still prevent the zoning law from changing, which is,
Right.
right on that.
does that have to pass by supermajority or can it pass by majority?
I don't want to state any further because I'm kind of stuck on my words.
Yes.
All right, back to the senior affordability housing problem. Is there, do you know if there's any thought of the affordable rent rate calculation? Because right now we're having a lot of trouble when we have affordable housing, the calculated affordable housing rate is really very close to the market rate. I mean, it's almost, you give a 40B a huge boost in density, but the affordability is only minor.
Yeah.
You know,
That rate is set at the federal level. It's HUD area median incomes. So we can't change that on our end. And I will tell you, there's two sides to it in the sense that for Worcester, it's high. At least the income levels are much beyond what the area median income is for Worcester. So Worcester, the median income for the city of Worcester is about $45,000 for a family of 4. The area median income is about $75,000 for a family of 4. So whereas in other communities around Worcester, it may be low for the real median income for that community. So that's tough. But yeah, it's based on HUD area median income requirements, so those changes are there. I will tell you there is, Boston is looking at doing more nuanced area median income that allows some flexibility, but Boston's doing it through their own direct vouchers they get from the federal government. It's not statewide.
That's why the housing choice is so interesting, because it really focuses on just production, housing production, not so much just affordable housing production, which is good, but because outside of Worcester in our region, you're right, Mark, it's affordable and market are so close, it's hard to incent somebody to come into affordable housing why take on a deed restriction when there's a house right across the street that's the same price, so.
well, that's the problem.
Yeah, you guys are not alone.
I have a question about the affordable housing tax credits, because that's a way that is really incenting developers in our town to put in affordable housing or to redevelop. We have a middle school that's being completely redeveloped, and a portion of it is going to be for affordable housing. So they're getting affordable housing tax credits and historical tax credits. That's the only way that building would get redeveloped, and it's going to be beautiful. And we embrace it because that median household, that eligibility for affordability is similar to our market rate. So we don't have any problem with it. And then if you're familiar with the former American Optical Complex, one of those buildings, the owner of that, Chuck Norton, is attempting, he's applying for affordable housing tax credits. But the problem is, apparently DHCD requires that the town put some skin in the game, which I don't understand that, because we're not hurting for affordable housing in our town. And it's very unclear how much they would want the town to put in. So we don't, it just seems like an odd requirement.
Are you an entitlement community?
Yes.
Yeah. If you're an entitlement community,
We need entitlement.
DHCD looks for a match. So there are certain communities that, based on levels of distress, have a direct relationship with the federal government. That every year Worcester gets a certain allocation of, they get home funds, they get block grant funds, they go directly to the city, they don't go through the state.
But many entitlements go to the state.
Well, then you're beyond my knowledge level on that, but if it's entitlement, I think that's the idea, is that if you have your own guaranteed allocation, the state looks for some form of partnership. If you don't, if you have no entitlement, then the state will come in with their, like you get federal low-income housing tax credits and state low-income housing tax credits, federal home funds, federal home funds, state housing grant funds. But I think they look for a local match. If they don't look for a locality to cut a check from their municipal budget. They look for a locality to cut a check from whatever
Like our
dedicated
CDG.
programs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was not made clear. That's good to know. Well, I'll follow up with them.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, yeah. That
Yes.
works.
I am 99.9% sure, having only worked in entitlement communities, I know, having only worked in entitlement communities, I know that's where the match always comes from. Your block grant, your home funds, whatever that
We
is.
don't get home funds.
You You don't, okay, but you get block grants. So block grant can be used as a match.
Okay.
And it is not a defined amount, it is kind of a negotiated amount as to show a local commitment to the
Okay,
project as
I'll
well.
look into that, thank you.
Anything else?
Do you have any ideas or programs you could direct us to that might help allow senior citizens to stay in their homes by helping with property taxes?
Well, there are programs, and I'm not an expert on this, there are state tax programs that allow for communities to do a senior exemption of sorts on property tax. It is an opt-in, you don't have to provide it, not all communities do, but you can actually reduce you're saying yes, so tell me I'm right.
You can also defer it. You could have you could opt in to defer the taxes so that they don't even have to pay any taxes. The problem is, last I knew, the interest accrues at 16%, which is the same as the tax title. If it goes into that and upon the death of the homeowner, then the town could start the foreclosure process on that particular property if the back taxes are not paid. But you could offer that opportunity, and there's also tax work-off.
Right.
Volunteer.
Right, and that's part of, that would be part of town meeting and part of the budget that you would set aside as part of that. There's also exemptions and abatements that are available, and I would highly encourage your taxpayers to talk to the Board of Assessors. They're familiar with all of that. They would start the conversation and also look at chapter land that they could go in if they owned. I mean, she's in Northborough, but if you had some property owners, say for instance, that had over 5 acres, if it's for agricultural purposes or even recreation at 10 acres or forestry, that they could receive a huge exemption on that property.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say, part of Housing Choice, one of the kind of goals is to allow the flexibility to do in-law apartments and the like, which sometimes are opposed from a broad zoning perspective. But with Housing Choice, that would be, again, a majority vote.
Our treasurer just spoke about this deferment plan when it's planned as opposed to a collection. I think he said it was an 8% rate versus a higher, perhaps a 16% rate. So it's an agreed upon deferment plan. The rate is lower. I believe that's what he spoke about.
I think that sounds about right.
So you might reach out to our Berlin treasurer, and I'm sure he's familiar with it.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
June would have known, but she retired.
All right?
Anything else?
Thank you. No, thank you, I appreciate it.